Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this. In this segment of the Music Den, I'm going to be starting an idea that I had called Impact. Now, with Impact, I'm going to be talking about albums that I feel, again, this is just my opinion, that I feel changed what modern rock music would become. And in the first episode, or first segment of this, I'm going to be focusing on Led Zeppelin, and I'm going to be talking about their debut album. Now, for those of you who don't know, Led Zeppelin were born out of the ashes of the Yardbirds. The Yardbirds were a rock band from the UK. They had actually the one hit I remember from the Yardbirds is Heart Full of Soul. Sorry, can't speak today. And I do remember seeing the video for Heart Full of Soul featuring Jimmy Page on guitar. Actually, also the Yardbirds had other guitarists such as Jeff Beck prior to Jimmy Page. The Yardbirds were on a tour of the UK, of Europe, sorry, in around 67, 68. And the bulk of the band decided to quit, which left only Jimmy Page left in the band, and they left him the rights to use the name the Yardbirds. But the problem was he had a tour booked. They had a tour booked of Scandinavia, which they had to fulfill. So Page set about putting together another band, which he was going to call the New Yardbirds. And this new lineup consisted of Robert Plant on vocals, John Paul Jones on bass, and John Henry Bonham was a friend of Robert Plant's on drums. They did the tour, and it went over really well. And a little side note, when they first all four got together in a rehearsal space and played one song together, which was Train Kept a Rollin', they knew right away that this was going to work as a band setup. So after the tour, they went into a recording studio, uh, Olympic recording studio in London, and set about recording tracks that was going to be Led Zeppelin 1. These tracks were recorded between September and October of 1968, and the total accumulated recording time was 36 hours. So pretty short. And the reason why, according to Jimmy Page, that the album was recorded so quickly was because the songs were played on tour, and they knew the songs so well that the recording took very little time to perfect. And Jimmy Page has said that he knew exactly from the beginning what kind of an album he wanted to put together, the kind of music that they wanted to record. He wanted to record a heavy rock album mixed with blues. The thing is, with Zeppelin 1, you had heavy rock mixed with blues, but also you had acoustic elements brought in with acoustic guitars, etc. So I call it, there's a lot of light and shade on this album. This album has 9 tracks on it, and right from the get-go, it is a powerhouse. From the first track, Good Times, Bad Times, when you hear the drums and the guitar come in right away, it's mind-boggling how heavy this album was for the time. And when you combine the heaviness of Page's guitars and Bonham's drums along with Robert Plant's vocals and his vocal delivery. It is astounding how heavy and also at times melodic on this album is. They also used other musical styles. They used there's a track on track two called Black Mountainside, which is an instrumental, and it combines acoustic guitars along with Middle Eastern influences, the tabla percussion instrument, played brilliantly, by Viram Jasani. What makes this album so groundbreaking, in my very humble opinion, is that it came out of nowhere. It literally came out of nowhere. Um, Ozzy Osbourne, who at that point, Black Sabbath had not released their debut album, when he heard the album, he said it was like a breath of fresh air. That it was just like the doors had opened to what was possible sonically with regards to rock and roll music. To me, this album was the turning point where instead of using the term rock and roll music, you just used the term rock music. Rock and roll had died, and rock as a genre had begun. Again, as I said, what I like about this album is you had elements of light and shade. You had the heaviness of Good Times, Bad Times, but you also had, on the other end of the spectrum, you had songs like Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, which had fantastic acoustic guitar arrangement from Jimmy Page. And it's got to be said too, the album wasn't without scrutiny and criticism, because they do a version of Willie Dixon's You Shook Me, which is heavy. Jeff Beck had also done a version of that track on his album Truth, and he was very critical of the fact and did not like the fact that Zeppelin had chosen to cover that song basically bar for bar how he did it on his album. So there was that issue. There was also the issue of, for me, the album centerpiece is Dazed and Confused, which is a track written by an artist named Jake Holmes. This track was featured by Page when he was in the Yardbirds, and they played it quite extensively. On the initial pressings of this album, you read in the credits that Jimmy Page had written this song, Dazed and Confused. Not so. It was written by Jake Holmes. He went on to sue them for copyright infringement. It was settled out of court, and if you read reissues, further pressings, it says written by Jimmy Page, inspiration by Jake Holmes. Okay. Now, this song, Dazed and Confused, it's a fantastic piece of work. It is moody with the bass that comes in and the drums, the bass drum, and you hear sort of, I call them guitar flourishes that start the song. And then Robert Plant comes in with a heavy, heartfelt vocal, talking about a woman who, no matter what he does for her, is not satisfied with anything that he gives her. Okay. So you have that. And the track itself, there's a section where Jimmy Page uses a bow, a violin bow, on the strings of the guitar. He's basically um, hitting the strings with the bow, and it creates a very eerie, evocative kind of sound. Okay. This song, when it was played live, would stretch out to at least 26 to 30-minute long improv. And it was played up until probably about the mid 70s, where it would morph into different improv sections and stuff. It was basically a showcase on the album for me, and live it was a showstopper. Okay, and it would also give Robert Plant time to go off stage and do whatever he needed to do and rest his vocals and his voice and stuff. Side two starts with Your Time Is Gonna Come. Now, this song, it's a beautiful song. It starts off with an organ passage played beautifully by John Paul Jones. He would also go on to play Mellotron on future releases. And then it goes into Black Mountainside, which, again, instrumental piece and features fantastic tabla work by Viram Jasani. And then from there, it goes right into Communication Breakdown. Communication Breakdown, backed with Good Times, Bad Times, was the only single release from the album in the UK and in the States. And just to let you know, chart positions for the album charted at number 10 in the UK, number 11 in the US, and I believe number 18 in Canada. So right from the get-go, this album had an impact on the charts and on the fans across the world. They were signed to Atlantic Records internationally, with the exception of France, where they were signed to Barclay Records. So it's very rare that a band is signed to basically one label internationally. And, but Peter Grant, their manager, wanted them to have equal, just an international signing to one label. Don't know why, but this is what he wanted to do. He wanted to keep it, I guess, level across the board. So, but this album was the genesis for everything that came after in terms of rock music. There are artists such as Joe Perry that has said that he does not travel without the first 4 Zeppelin albums to listen to, that they are his inspiration, that he felt that Jimmy Page was a fantastic songwriter, arranger, producer, and also, again, Jimmy Page produced all of the albums for the band. And he wouldn't give up that role. He insisted on producing all the albums. 1, to keep costs low, and 2, he obviously wanted control of the musical output. And every reissue that has been done, he has been in charge of overseeing what is released, how it's released, what music comes out on these reissues. So for me, again, this is the album where everything changed in terms of the face of music, because when this album came out, there were other record companies out there and management teams out there that were trying to sign the next Led Zeppelin. And although there were fantastic bands that came out, you could not match the musical impact and influence of Zeppelin in that first album. Okay, again, I know people are going to say this, what about Zeppelin 2? What about Zeppelin 4? What about Zeppelin 3? It all started with this one album, with the debut. So, it's for that reason that I feel that this album did have an impact on future modern music and rock music that comes out today. They're still touted as a major influence on bands that come out today. Groups like the Tea Party, for another example. Jeff Martin has cited Jimmy Page as a major influence on him for his guitar playing, and they subsequently became friends. And there are some uh, tapes of music that they recorded together that has never been released. So if that ever comes to light, I'm definitely going to jump on that bandwagon and check out that album if it ever does come out. So that is my opinion for this episode. Zeppelin 1 as a major musical influence. Please, down below, let me know what you think. Leave your comments down there. Let me know what you think. Do you like Led Zeppelin 1? Do you not like Led Zeppelin 1? Do you think that Led Zeppelin basically, were overblown, or, there was too much hype about them? Or did they live up to the hype? Did they exceed the hype? Did they exceed expectations? Please let me know what you think. Put your comments down below, and please click like and subscribe, and please hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. I'm going to be doing a couple more of these episodes, I think, and hopefully you guys like what I'm doing. And I want to thank all of you again for subscribing and for watching and for supporting me up to this point. It's been difficult doing it on my own. And I want to thank also Bill Schuster and Andrew Cox and Ryan Cavalier for coming on the show with me and coming on the channel, sorry, and helping me doing these videos, because they've been a tremendous help. And without them and without you guys watching, this wouldn't be possible. So again, please have a fantastic day. Look after yourselves and one another. And I will be back with another video very soon. Bye for now.